Hi there, my name is Kay Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer. And this is a video about the full moon in Libra occurring on April 6, 2023 at 12:12 a.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, if not, please check a time zone converter for your local time. This will be the lunar update for the divine counterparts. Super thrilling period of time. We are in the midst of an unprecedented, once in a lifetime opportunity to rewrite our own timelines. It's kind of blank check from the universe energy, which is rare. I've not seen this in the time I've been reading. I've actually been hearing other astrologers saying, as long as they've been reading, that this is once in a lifetime as well. So, I'm going to encourage you, if you don't normally listen to the Lightworker Energy Update, to please have a listen to that as well for two reasons. One, because the scope of this passageway is actually most potent and focused on love. And I talked about that at the Aries new moon, and I spoke about that at the full moon, both updates for light workers. This is a very love focused period of time and an opportunity to create whatever it is you want in love. And so, even though I put these updates for the divine counterparts exclusively, if you really want to understand the full picture of what you're capable of doing with this period of time, have a listen to that. The second thing that I'll say is that the full moon in Libra that we've got going on right now is part of a longer period of time that moves through the solar eclipse and the Mercury retrograde that are both coming. Solar eclipse on the 21st, so 14 days from now. Mercury retrograde, we're in the pre-phase as of the 7th, and the post-phase concludes at the 31st. For exact dates and for what this means, because this Mercury retrograde is indeed heavily love focused, go have a listen to the Lightworker Energy Update so that you can understand how to use this energy in a conscious way, instead of just getting updated on what's happening. You really want to be able to maximize your capacity to harness this energy constructively for yourself. All right. Cool. And the final thing I'll say is, if you're used to being here and looking me up at the new and full moon, I highly encourage you to subscribe, because that will allow you to get the intel before and hit the notification bell before the energies in play. It's very rare these days that you'll find me late on a lunar update. Most of the time, I'm a little bit in advance. So if you want to make sure that you get the energy before it's peaking, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you can tune in as soon as the information drops. Okay, let's get into how cool this lunar update is, because it's special. And I don't mean special in the sarcastic way. I mean special in the, ooh, don't miss this, because this is going to be one of the best seasons of all of our lives kind of way. Here we go. Full moon right here in Libra, our relationship sign, opposite sun on the relationship axis. The Aries Libra axis specifically deals with relationships. Aries being relationship to self, where the sun sits, and the sun being the catalyzing factor for the full moon, because the sun lights up the moon. The moon doesn't have light of its own, it's reflective of the sun. And so we're dealing with the relationship between sun and moon there, and the moon being in the sign of partnership. So, relationship to others being strongly highlighted. Thrilling period of time, specifically because of the way this lunar update includes divine masculine energy. So strongly, we've got Jupiter sitting here opposite the moon as well. And that divine masculine energy is having a very loud conversation with Chiron, as it has been for about the last 30 to 45 days. I'm going to talk about what that means in a minute. But it's giving us the opportunity to see why we are in the place we are in when it comes to our partnerships and what we can actually do about it in a constructive way. The gift in this is that Chiron's position has two functions. When we have Chiron so heavily featured with one of the counterparts and or at a lunation, sitting with the sun, sitting with the moon, Chiron becomes a very active participant in whatever process is unfolding for the planets it's touching. And because it's touching the sun, which deals with identity, then it's touching Jupiter, which deals with our internal divine masculine energy. What we have is a conversation where Chiron is inviting us to have a look at what is our own internal divine masculine energy looking like right now. It's basically giving us the chance for a bit of a temperature check, if you will, or this lunation is giving us the chance, like a checkup or like a scorecard of like where we're at in our healing right now. So one thing that it stood out to me as I was kind of ruminating on this for counterparts and wanting to really lean into this and create revelation for all of us around it was that construct of wounded healer. Now, I go into Chiron's dual identities more in the Lightworker energy update, where I talk about Chiron as leader and teacher, and I also talk about Chiron as wounded. But the intersection point where we can flip from one to the other is at the place of understanding what it means to be healed and what healing really is. And so anytime I really want to share or break down, like, okay, because the core of what we understand Chiron to be is about healing, I always go to the etymological dictionary to get deep into the constructs of a word. And what we have going on here with the word heal, because we talk about Chiron being the wounded healer being the active part. The word heal comes from the Old English cure, salve, to make whole, sound, and well, which was based on the Proto-Germanic Heiljan, and that was also Old Saxon, Old Norse, Hela, Old Frisian, Hela, Dutch Helen, German, and on and on and on. But all of that meant, if we went to the earliest of this, which literally meant to make whole, which was ultimately from the Proto-Indo-European root "hylo," which meant whole. To make complete something that might have been previously in pieces is no longer in pieces. It is now put back together. And so what we have going on with Chiron so deeply featured is the places where we may have been fragmented in our own identity, because Aries deals with identity. It deals with our personality, who we are, our ambitions. It deals with our drive and what it is we want to create. Where there has been fragmentation or severing or cut offness from those parts of ourself, what we have happening is an opportunity to bring it all back together again, a way to get whole under the light of this full moon. What's interesting about the process of healing, and if you've ever been injured in any way, you've certainly seen this, whether it's been a cut or a surgery or a broken bone or an organ that you've needed to get replaced or is healing. The process of becoming whole from fractured is one that A, can take some time, but B, can be physically uncomfortable. The growing of new cells can be physically uncomfortable. And so what we have under the light of this full moon, and with the sun being the illuminating factor for all of this, is we have illumination about the places where we feel most uncomfortable in our internal masculine energy, divine masculine energy, and the opportunity to become whole, to create new cells again. This is very exciting because literally what this is talking about is the wound pointing the way. Wherever your discomfort is during this full moon in the world of relationship, partnership, and connection, that discomfort is fostering the pathway to becoming whole again. Where you're fragmented may show itself in real time during this full moon and say, this is where we need to work. This is where we need to grow. This is where we need to create a new sense of who we are, because the old sense of who we are is what's generated everything that's continued to hurt us in love and relationship up until this point. But our new identity, in terms of what we're willing to provide for ourselves, what it is we have to protect for ourselves. We've got Pallas highly featured here, speaking to divine masculine energy. She talks about protectorship, what it is we need to generate for ourselves or have ambition and drive to go get. That's the Aries energy. That is all going to be predicated on the absolute clarity about what's not working at this time. And so understanding that any discomfort you have in your own divine masculine energy fields at this time serves divine purpose. Okay. It gives you an opportunity to create, to heal, and to heal from the place of looking very clearly, facing it without flinching, where there has been fragmentation. Okay. Now, I like this because in Aries, what we have, because Aries is all about identity, the Aries Libra axis, it's about relationship with self, relationship with the other. This is an opportunity to heal our identity and connection and tell a new story about who I am. I can tell a new story about who you are. I can tell a new story about who we are and actually have these new stories manifest. Uniquely present as well during this lunation. Now, Moon here also represents mothers and motherhood. And where Chiron speaks to the moon, we are dealing with our relationship with mothering. Whether you are a mother, we definitely all came from a mother in one form or fashion. Whether you are mothering your own inner child wounds, this lunar update is going to have us have an opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong, there's moments where we deal with fathers. That's Saturn. But this lunar update deals with the mother energy within us and the ways in which it's impacted our divine masculine energy internally. And so this is giving us the opportunity to rewrite or create a healing process around the ways we may have had relationship to motherhood or mothering that hasn't served us. This is our opportunity to tell a new story about our own mother. Maybe instead of, she was narcissistic and she hurt me and I'll never be the same because of what she did, cancel, delete. You can tell the story of, you know what? She was a human and she had her own battles. And you know what? I don't, I can be the kind of person I want to be in spite of who she was in my formative years. I now have the opportunity to reform, reshape, and reparent myself. That kind of thing. Or even if you had the greatest mother on earth and now you're telling yourself a story of, I don't know if I'll ever be that good of a mother. You have the opportunity to rewrite that, right? Okay. So this moment in time, and then part of the reason why mothers are so featured is because we also have Chariklo in conversation with this moon and with this Jupiter. Chariklo is one of the mothers of the zodiac. We've got several mothers all over the map in the chart, but Chariklo is one of them, and she operates in divine intercession on our behalf on the other side. And the Chiroclo energy is an energy of gifting and benevolence. And that gifting and benevolence is really based and predicated on what we choose to do, because Aries is action and our own divine masculine energy to work toward healing ourselves. We take the action, and thus Chiroclo meets us more than halfway and intercedes on our behalf. Okay. Major opportunities here to sever our old story from our new story in love and assist the people that we love from an intercessory standpoint in prayer and in affirmation so that they can become the best they can be in love as well. Now, again, there's a real need to be focused on what you want in connection and not what you don't want. And there's a significant period of release and purge that we had last year. We did that when the Divine Feminine was speaking to the South Node. There was a lot of like purging energy as she lined up with the South Node there in Scorpio. Now we have the Divine Feminine on the opposite side of the chart, speaking with the North Node in Taurus. This is a period of reemergence for both counterparts. This is a period of rebirth for both counterparts, where she was speaking from Pisces to the Scorpio South Node last year. There was a lot of release and purge. Now she is sitting in Taurus in the North, speaking with the North Node, opening up new pathways in our feminine energy. Now that we did a bunch of cleaning out, now we can fill back up. And the fill up is really based on what new story do you want to tell yourself about love and commitment. Okay. Let me just make sure I have all this. Yeah. Okay, I do. Okay. So there she is. She's speaking with the North Node. And she's kind of the star of the show here, because here she is speaking with the North Node. North Node points the pathway to new processes, new growth, the direction of learning and focus. The North Node is what opens up timelines. We've got Uranus here. Uranus is the hand of the divine, the quantum leap forward, the original divine counterpart, the one that catalyzes significant transformation in the mind and in life. We've got her sitting with both of these and thus creating new timelines forward in the divine feminine energy field. Now we've also got Venus here, Venus and her and the North Node and Uranus. They've all been in this conversation for about 4 weeks now. This conversation has come to a head with Juno and Uranus connecting. And because they're all having this conversation also with Pluto, and Pluto represents transformation, Pluto is the movement of death, afterlife, rebirth, that alchemical cycle. They're all speaking in harmony to Pluto. What we have is a complete receptivity, a complete change in receptivity to one another in connection through the divine feminine energy fields, where we were previously in a time of letting out. Now we're in a time of letting back in. And this is going to mean several different things for different counterparts. While our divine masculine energy is over here doing a lot of healing work and reemergence work, and let me figure out what it is and who I can be in connection. Our divine feminine energy is over here going, let me support that by rewriting my very rules around relationship. Now, for some people, this is going to be a change in the patterns in your connection. If the pattern was that one person always did all the reaching out and the other person, was in more receptive mode, that's going to shift. If the pattern was we could connect, but with a lot of emotional distance between us, that's going to shift. If the pattern was that the connection was stable as long as one or both of us had a third party in the mix, that's going to shift. There's an evolution in commitment level and connection with Juno so heavily featured. There was, the connection was always, we were just engaged but never married. That could now evolve. The connection was always, we lived together, but it never really worked for us. We would always get in fights. You could now find yourself not living together, but being more harmonious than ever in your connection. If the previous pattern was, this just never evolves, we only get so far and then we always break up, that can shift and evolve as well. There's an up level to this. Essentially, there's a movement from the existent pattern that may not have been working as well as we would have liked it to, and the movement from that pattern into something that can work in a significantly better way. There's also a renewal of feminine and nurturing energy in the connection, where there's deeper compassion toward one another, like I mentioned, deeper receptivity. And for some, this is going to mean a motherhood activation that will become more manifest over the next year in physical form. Okay. There's a real lovely deepening of union energy and potential to turn over a new leaf for those who are already in union. There's a sense of kind of profound togetherness, profound, we can do anything because we are together kind of vibe here, and profound kind of like almost like a superhuman kind of vibe to this, and the two of you's together presence in the third dimension that both of you really may be able to feel at this time in union. So that's really exciting. I love to be able to hear that and see that and report on it. And for those who are like, well, there's something that's kind of like union, but not quite the union that I want it to be. There's communication, but I want it to be all these other things. This is a real opportunity for those of you who would like things to be in a different place to really get laser focused on, decreeing things go as you'd like them to be, and being willing to see, being shown through your divine masculine energetic field, who do I need to become in order to have exactly that kind of relationship? What's my part to play in this? Under the light of this Libra full moon, you will indeed be shown. And this is especially true with this Mercury retrograde coming up over the next 8 weeks in the mix. So I'm going to speak about that in a minute, but if you're feeling like, okay, I'm ready to have, a shift in the way my connection is rendering, in whatever way that is, right? Like my connection is rendering in this way where we're married, but, I feel like I have to put in all the work, or, we are in communication, but I'd like more physical and face-to-face contact, or, we are in a place where we're just friends, but I'm curious about, is the doorway open to romance? Or, I know I've been wounded with this person, but I really would like to get past that so that we can open the door to love again. If any of those really resonate true for you during this period of time when Mercury goes retrograde, let me just tell you that finishes on the post phase finishes May 31st, during this period of time where Uranus and Juno are in conversation. That's like the now time. This is a moment where you have the opportunity to open the door to a completely new timeline. And I can't overstate how special this period of time is. So if this is something you want to really rewrite for yourself, we should probably have a conversation. Allow me to look at your chart. Let me see what the patterns are in love for you and what the options are for getting into higher vibrational frequencies with your particular blueprint around love and connection. Okay, calendar is open. definitely get it in before the eclipse, which is on April 20th, because that period of time, everything between now and then, and just right around that period into the beginning of May, is going to be potent, 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 potent. Like, truly, you can, like, I don't know, like bippity boppity boo. I don't like wave a magic wand. It's the kind of, I've never seen this energy before, honestly. It's a different kind of magic that I'm seeing, that is really allowing prayers to be answered in a way that they have. It's been work up until now, and this is a kind of moment when the work can pay off. Okay. Um, So definitely use the opportunity for any type of feminine manifestation that you know how to do, any kind of ritual and practice you know how to do. For those of you that understand, really how to work prayer, especially with Chariclo in the mix, because there's a way in which divine intercession and intervention is absolutely at hand with this full moon and the next new moon. And with a little bit of good old fashioned masculine elbow grease here with Jupiter in the sign of taking action, that's Aries, you're going to see a completely different pathway open up for you in your divine connection. And it's my absolute pleasure to be able to report on that after literally years of seeing very different things going on. Now I'm seeing something new happening, and I can't overstate how important it is to be in your conscious creatorship around this at this time. Okay. There is a Mercury communication with the North Node that I was mentioning. This Mercury is going to go forward, then Mercury is going to come back, then it's going to go forward. The exact Mercury retrograde dates are, we've got the pre-phase that begins on April 7th. The Mercury turns retrograde on April 21st and turns direct again on May 14th. And then we've got the post phase on May 31st. Okay. So those are those dates. But this Mercury is walking the path and retrograding on the path where there was Venus and Juno and Uranus all sitting together trying to transform our love lives. And so, because Mercury represents consciousness and it represents communication, mind and mouth, if you will, this is a moment when we have to be accountable for having these things under control. We cannot afford to ruminate on what was, because in this energy, the person who you may have been dealing with, who was showing up one way, can continue to show up that way if you continue to talk about them and think about them in that way. But if you start thinking about them in a new way, Uranus is about the new, North Node is about the new. There's a lot of other newness going on, which I talked about in the Lightworker Energy Update. There's so much newness here. If you just start talking and thinking new about your connection, you're going to start to see a new connection emerge, and actually pretty rapidly as well. Okay. There is a lot of need to be in the place of self-love, self-appreciation, self-acceptance, and approval as the foundational step in creating the kind of connection you want. And that's predominantly because this Mercury retrograde is here in Taurus. We've got this love stellium in Taurus going on under the light of this full moon. And this Venus, this Uranus, this Juno, this North Node all speak to new timelines opening up in love. But the option for them to open up is through Taurus, which is all about self-love, self-appreciation, self-worth, self-esteem, self-value. So in order to get new in love, you're going to have to love yourself in a new way. Okay. We certainly, and that's the fun thing about astrology, is it's so specific and it's guidance, right? We have this whole full moon going on our relationship axis. However, the only way to get the full moon's benefit of all this newness and love is to deal with our own wounds and get into self-love. Like, talk about magic and instruction and guidance, like clear, super clear. Couldn't be any clearer. Okay. So I love to see this because whether you're together and paving the way to some kind of deeper commitment or marriage, or completing a period of healing and looking for a new connection or a reconnection, what you speak about, what you think about in this particular time has the power to replicate itself on a new timeline. So if you're wanting to create a new love story, now's the perfect time to book a reading so you can understand what the patterns are in your chart if you've been manifesting love in a way that you have outgrown emotionally and spiritually. You just need some new behaviors to understand what to do about it. Book with me over at K-Moon Astro. You don't need more than 30 minutes just to ask that one question. We can do a deep dive on the different areas in your chart that talk about the patterns in love that cause blockage and the breakthrough for your evolution. Okay. Now, here's the thing about this period of time. It's that it could be a tad bit tender with Jupiter conjunct Chiron and the sun illuminating that Chiron with this full moon situation going on. And by tender, I specifically mean there can be a way in which you might feel in tune with the old story that you may used to have, and I'm using the used to language very intentionally with your ears, that somehow, some way you weren't enough. And I'm using past tense with weren't there because that could be an active energy right now. And I'm just going to call it that you're done associating with that story for you. And you can borrow my faith until yours is strong enough. But if that's an active energy for you right now, that doesn't surprise me because Chiron has two sides. The Chironic energy can both deal with the story of I'm so different, I'm not enough, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve because I went through this, I had that experience, blah, 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 blah. It can go in that direction. And that can create a bit of tenderness under a full moon. And if that tenderness is here, it has divine purpose, as I was saying. It gives us the opportunity to face what we're ready to be free from. Okay. But that Chiron also has another side to it. Chiron is also leadership, it's guidance and wisdom. Its teaching comes through in your authority, especially in love and self-love, and showing people how to be themselves by fully embracing yourself. This may be a period of time where right now you're doing that self-embracing and it's inspiring the people around you to embrace themselves even more. Now, more Chiron woundedness pointing, if you have that going on, the Chiron woundedness as opposed to the Chiron light and leadership, it's pointing where there's tenderness, that right there, that's the place where you want to be in the practice of the self-acceptance. You want to be in the place of telling yourself how wonderful you are because of what you've been through and how amazing you are for coming through the other side. Where there's any part of you that feels unique or different, and therefore that's the reason within you that causes you to be left out, ostracized, or not chosen, that part may come up, but this is the part you need to love right now. Because even if it's coming up in other ways, you'll note that it's showing us where, okay, this is where I can appreciate myself and appreciate the people who have loved me, and especially loved those parts of me, not loved me in spite of, but loved me because of those parts of me. Okay. This is your opportunity to carve out space through loving those parts of you, because the more you integrate and embrace those parts, the more you're vibrationally setting the stage for somebody to integrate and embrace you. Okay. And even in this, you can really use your mind and your mouth. That's this mercurial energy here to create corrections in your consciousness where you've been telling yourself not enough stories. This is the time to just use your language, speak out loud to yourself. When your mind starts to wander in those directions, they'll never want me, da 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 da. Whatever story you create in your rumination and quiet time, this is your time to really use your mouth to say, all right, that's not true anymore. I used to think that way, but I don't think like that anymore. I have a new way of living, a new way of speaking. And I now call in people who love me for exactly who I am. And I love this part of me. Okay. So, in the Virgo full moon update, roughly about 4 weeks ago, I left a series of resources in the description box below that video. I time-stamped where I walked you through each one of those resources that would help you figure out how to be in the place of self-love and creating what it is you want. So definitely have a look under that video for those resources if in fact you're in a place where you're like, yeah, I'm ready. I have felt stuck, but I am ready to be unstuck, and I'm looking for ways to get unstuck. Use those resources, book time with me so we can rewrite your story in love together. And yeah, this is going to be a really beautiful year for love. As I've mentioned, this is a union year. It's year 2 of 2. Last year was a union year as well. And so the more you're able to be in that union with self energy, you're cultivating the pathway for a union with a counterpart to show up. I love you guys so much. Thanks for every like, every subscribe, and every share. Please subscribe if you are not subscribed yet. I know you're going to love hanging out with us. Take great care and bye for now.